The sound that cut through the fog of that dawn was not the howl of a wolf, nor the roar of a great feline. It was a sharp, desperate cry that seemed to come from the bowels of the earth. Beneath the carcass of an old willow, 3 wolf cubs, their eyes still closed and their bodies trembling violently, tried to warm themselves against the already cold flank of their mother. The tragedy had been swift, but the void it left behind was immense. It was at that moment that the ground trembled. A massive shadow, with golden muscles and movements that seemed to glide over the ice, emerged from the darkness. Kyra, a lioness with a deep gaze and scars that told stories of lost battles, approached. She did not belong to those frozen mountains. She was an exile from a distant reserve, but the grief she carried from losing her own litter weeks earlier made her a compass of pain searching for direction. Benjamin, the forest ranger who monitored the area, watched the scene through a thermal lens, his finger trembling on the tranquilizer trigger. He expected the kill, the natural law of survival, where the predator eliminates the competition. But what he saw made him lower the weapon. Kyra did not open her jaws to bite. She released a warm breath over the cubs, a vapor that wrapped the little wolves like a blanket. In an act that defied millennia of instinct, the lioness lay down around them, allowing the small gray claws to cling to her golden fur. In that instant, Benjamin realized that nature had just torn up the rulebook. Kyra did not see prey or rivals. She saw only the same emptiness she felt in her own chest. If you're being touched by this connection that defies all the laws of life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments what you thought of the story and from which city or country you're watching the video. The mystery, however, was only just beginning. As the little wolves, whom Benjamin named Coda, Scar, and Lupa, began to nurse from the lioness's milk, the ranger noticed something disturbing in the surroundings. There were human footprints mixed with claw marks in the snow, but they were tracks that ended abruptly, as if someone had simply vanished. Kyra seemed to know they were being watched, for her amber eyes never left the tree line. Who could have left those cubs there to be found by an exiled lioness? The silence of the forest held a question that Benjamin feared to answer, while the unlikely warmth of that feline mother was the only thing keeping the hearts of the small wolves beating against the relentless winter. The months that followed transformed the clearing into a laboratory of crossed instincts. Under Kyra's constant watch, the 3 wolves grew with an agility that did not belong to their species. They did not trot like ordinary wolves. They had learned the lioness's stealthy gait, moving with low shoulders and paws that did not make a single sound on the carpet of dry leaves. Benjamin, observing from his camouflage post, noticed that the hierarchy there was absolute. Kyra did not tolerate the common indiscipline of wolf litters. When Scar, the most impetuous, tried to challenge the adoptive mother's authority with a premature growl, the lioness responded with a paw strike with retracted claws that threw him meters away, teaching that, in that kingdom, strength was accompanied by total respect. However, biology began to take its toll as winter gave way to a damp spring. The scent of the forest changed, and with it, the behavior of Coda, Scar, and Lupa. During full moon nights, the lioness remained seated like a bronze statue, while her children entered a state of sensory trance. They began to howl, a sound that started low and ended in a guttural tone that resembled Kyra's roar. It was a hybrid communication, a call that seemed to search for something beyond the mountains. The mystery deepened when Benjamin found, near the cave where they slept, a series of stones arranged in perfect circles, containing remains of meat that had not been hunted by Kyra. Someone was feeding their wild nature behind the lioness's back, encouraging a darker side that Kyra tried to control with affection. The tension between the domestic and the wild reached a breaking point on a stormy afternoon. A group of nomadic wolves, drawn by the hybrid howls, surrounded Kyra's hunting ground. Benjamin prepared for the worst, believing the young wolves would turn against the lioness to join their own kind. But what happened was a twist that left the ranger breathless. Coda and Scar did not approach the visitors to play. They positioned themselves in front of Kyra, with the fur on their backs bristling, protecting the lioness as if she were the most valuable member of their own pack. If you are feeling the strength of this loyalty that goes beyond blood, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments what you thought of the story and from which city or country you're watching the video. The loyalty demonstrated by Coda and Scar in the storm was not just a passing gesture. It was the beginning of a transformation that Benjamin could no longer ignore. The nomadic wolves retreated, intimidated not by the size of the lioness, but by the coordinated fury of that hybrid family. However, Kyra's isolation was coming to an end. The forest ranger received an alert on his radio that would change everything. The Transcontinental Reserve had been sold to a private group, and the transport of the exiled lioness back to her original habitat was imminent. The dilemma was heartbreaking. Kyra was an invasive species in that climate, and the wolves were natives who, by law, could not follow her. Benjamin knew that separating that bond would be like trying to tear skin from muscle. As preparations for the capture moved forward, a new element emerged to complicate the mystery of the circular stones. In the middle of a night patrol, Benjamin found tactical boot prints that led to an old underground bunker, camouflaged by vegetation. Inside, he discovered monitors transmitting real-time images of Kyra's cave. The experiment was not natural. It was a clandestine observation by an organization studying how large predators from different continents could form defense coalitions. Someone wanted those wolves to be raised by a lioness to create a lineage of superior hunters, immune to fear and capable of feline tactics. Kyra's affection had been used as a scientific tool without her knowing. Sensing that the net was closing in, Kyra began to act erratically. She stopped hunting and started taking the wolves to the highest and most rugged passages, where transport vehicles could not reach. On a gray afternoon, she stopped before an abyss and looked at Lupa, the most sensitive of the trio. The lioness let out a low sound, a murmur that seemed like a final command. Scar and Coda began to dig desperately beneath a specific rock, revealing a tunnel that Benjamin had never noticed. There was a secret exit from that mountain, and Kyra seemed to be granting freedom to her children before the steel nets arrived. If you're caught up in this tension and want to know what will happen to this family, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments where you're watching from. The metallic sound of helicopters cut through the sky, shattering the forced peace of the mountain. The extraction teams from the private group advanced with tranquilizer darts and high-resistance nets, focused on capturing the anomalous lioness. Benjamin, torn between his duty and his conscience, watched through binoculars as Kyra pushed Coda and Scar into the tunnel they had discovered. She knew her golden presence was an easy target in the snow, a beacon for the pursuers, and that her only chance to save her children was to become the final distraction. With a roar that seemed to shake the stones on the slope, the lioness did not flee into the shadows. She walked toward the open field, deliberately exposing herself to draw the shooter's attention away from the secret entrance where the wolves were hiding. The twist came when the first dart struck Kyra's flank. Instead of collapsing, she fought against the chemicals, her amber eyes fixed on the tree line where her children were safe. It was at that moment that the clandestine bunker Benjamin had discovered revealed its true face. A powerful sound system, hidden among the rocks, began to emit frequencies of howls of pain, a desperate attempt by the scientists to force the wolves to come out and defend their mother, thus completing the coalition test. But the wolves had learned more than hunting tactics from Kyra. They had learned the discipline of silence. Coda and Scar remained motionless, their hearts pounding, honoring their mother's silent command that they must live, no matter the cost. Benjamin, acting on an impulse of justice, sabotaged the bunker's transmission cables, silencing the artificial howls, and giving Kyra the moment of peace she needed to finally succumb to the induced sleep. The lioness was taken in a net, suspended by a helicopter that disappeared into the gray horizon, leaving behind a trail of dust and the bitterest silence the ranger had ever felt. The wolves were free, but at what cost? The emptiness in the clearing was now an open wound. If you're feeling the pain of this forced separation and want to see how fate will bring them together again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave in the comments what you thought of the story and from which city you were watching. Years passed, and the mountain became a place of legends. Benjamin, now retired, occasionally returned to that clearing, driven by a longing that time could not erase. The wolves that Kyra had raised had not become the monsters the scientists had planned. They became the silent guardians of the valley. Coda, Scar, and Lupa now led a vast pack, but they retained habits strange to their species, such as feline patience and a refusal to hunt out of cruelty. The mystery surrounding Kyra's fate remained a shadow in the man's heart, until a report from an African sanctuary reached his hands. An elderly lioness, rescued from a clandestine laboratory that had collapsed, was dying of sadness, refusing to eat or interact with others of her species. Benjamin used all his savings and contacts to organize what everyone called madness. The reunion was planned in a neutral conservation area, a vast enclosed field where the transitional climate allowed the meeting of both worlds. When Kyra's cage was opened, she stepped out with trembling movements, her golden fur now dull and her gaze lost. She no longer seemed to recognize the world. But then, the wind blew from the north. 3 massive figures emerged from the tree line with a supernatural calm. There were no growls or hesitation. The adult wolves, now giants with thick coats and intelligent eyes, approached Kyra in a triangular formation, exactly as she had taught them to hunt. What happened next left the veterinarians and Benjamin speechless. Coda, the largest of them all, lowered his head and emitted a low sound, a murmur that blended a howl and a purr. Kyra stopped. Her ears lifted, and, for a moment, the strength of youth seemed to return to her body. She did not growl. She let out a deep sigh and lay down on her side, the same position she used in the den years before. The 3 wolves, ignoring all the instincts of their wild lineage, nestled against the body of the elderly lioness, covering her with their warmth and loyalty. The bond created in the mountain winter proved to be stronger than distance, science, or even biology itself. Kyra did not die of sadness. She fell asleep that night, surrounded by the children fate had given her, proving that love is the only force capable of rewriting the laws of nature. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where you're watching from.